we want to do something because there are some people who need our help. Don't look at China as one market. It is at least 33 markets. It is a lot of misunderstanding and cultural difference and even cultural shocking. And so it's actually impossible to sign this kind of complicated agreement. For example, in New Zealand companies and want to go to China, but they cannot see anything, cannot find anything, and we are the lighthouse to help them to find the right directions. Find a good place and good way and good partner. So what our advantage is, we not just help you to bridge it, to tell you how to do it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ways to Wealth. Today I'm joined by Julian Zhu.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Julian, why don't you give us the too long didn't read about who you are and what you're working on?
Actually, my name is Julian. I come from China, Shanghai.
Yeah.
And I have been in New Zealand for almost 26 years. Yeah. And but in these times, I travel between China and New Zealand to have the business happen, and to have the New Zealand products and company to go to China, and also help the China companies come to New Zealand to do investment or find their clients. Yeah.
That's cool. So you're kind of like a bridge between the two places.
Yeah, we can call it a bridge, but sometimes I call it lighthouse.
Okay.
Lighthouse for the companies and for the people, for example, in New Zealand companies and who want to go to China, but they cannot see anything, cannot find anything, and we are the lighthouse to help them to find the right directions.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So you've been in New Zealand for 26 years.
Yes.
Was it study that brought you here? Or what was the reason for coming to New Zealand?
The reason comes from New Zealand, and I think it's just to explore the world. Yeah. I live in when I born in Nanjing in China city, 300 kilometers away from Shanghai, and I graduated from top 10 university in Nanjing University, and then I find a job at a big company, and it's a founder company there, and it belongs to the Peking University of China.
Okay.
And it is the top 2 universities. I worked there, but I find it as a little boring, so I want to go out to have a look. Yeah. So I come to New Zealand, but there is a very interesting story and about how and why I choose New Zealand.
Okay, tell me.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the year when I decide where to go. Yeah. I listen to the radio, and on the radio there is some people is telling the story about the experience. She lived in New Zealand before, and she said, in New Zealand is very clean and pure country, and when you like the bird, it's not just like in China, and you find a bird or buy a bird and put it in the cage, and put the cage in your home. It's not, and because by doing that, the birds lost their freedom. But in New Zealand, she said, if you like a bird, you just put a bowl of water in your garden, and then the bird will come to your garden every morning, and you can listen to the song of the bird. So I heard this story. I think New Zealand must be a very, very beautiful country, and they treat the birds so good, so well. I must come here. So it is decided because of nothing more, just for the kind treatment to the bird. Yeah, interesting.
That is funny. That is a cool story. So just an ordinary person telling their experience about the birds in New Zealand, and birds are obviously a very big deal in New Zealand, right? The native bird kind of ecosystem is treasured. That's why? Because it's maybe another reason is because my father, he feeds some birds in home, but the birds in the cage. So I often try to
open the door and want to fly the bird.
Oh, really? That's hilarious. That's really funny. So, when you got here, how did you navigate that? Right, like a new country. Did you already speak English well when you came here, or pretty good?
I think not pretty good, but good enough to live, to study, and to find some part-time job here. Yeah, and when I come here, then I study English first, and at the Christchurch, in the Canterbury University English Language Center, for several months. And after that, I find the Christchurch is a quite good city, but no too many opportunities. Yeah, at the time, 25 years ago.
Yeah, I guess that's changing now.
Yeah, it's changing now. And then after several months, I decided to come to Auckland. Yeah, and why I come to Auckland and how to find a job here is I have some friends who work in the Auckland universities.
Right.
And then they find a job for me in the Auckland University in chemistry department.
Okay.
Yeah, because my major in China, in Nanjing University, is chemistry. Yeah. And so when I come here and they find a job for me to work as a research assistant in Auckland universities. And I worked there for almost 1 year.
And then you've had various roles from there, right, afterwards. But now you are a business owner, and now you're the lighthouse for the
New Zealand companies to China.
For the New Zealand companies going to China. I went to China 2 years ago, and we were going back to England. That's where I'm from.
Yeah.
And we decided to, on the way back home, we decided to leave the airport and go to the Great Wall and have some time in China, a little bit of time in China in between our flights. It was very fun.
Yeah.
So the kids and I got to go, which was great. It was a very interesting experience. I'd never been out of an airport. I've been to China just through transit, never outside and gone to there. So I would like to spend some more time there. What do you think the most misunderstood thing about China is to Western people, specifically maybe even New Zealanders?
Misunderstanding, and I think every country, their people have some misunderstanding about other countries. Yeah. But I think for New Zealand, this kind of misunderstanding is the less for Chinese people, because Chinese people think New Zealand is a good country, well-developed country, and a lot of sheep and cows, pure, clean. It is correct, but a little misunderstanding is about they think in New Zealand there is no too many high buildings and not so modern, especially outside of Auckland. And they expected this, but not so less. Maybe.
So that Chinese people expect there to be more development, and when they get here, there's not as much or not as big as buildings as they would expect.
Yeah. They expect there's no too many buildings, but not so less. And for example, the first time when I arrived in New Zealand 26 years ago, and I find the Auckland airport is not as big as I expected. And a little smaller even than my hometown Nanjing airport. But when I arrived in Christchurch, I find the airport is even smaller. And actually, I have a little disappointed at that time. But that day when I went to the homestay at the time, it is in the Avon Head of Christchurch. I find the Avon Head is very beautiful, and all the buildings in there is just come from a tale story. And the person lived there. It's just like living in a story in the kingdom, and it's very beautiful and relaxed. So suddenly I loved New Zealand.
And what about the other way around? You know, like you're helping companies go to China, right? New Zealand companies go to China, but
Yes.
and helping those business owners.
Yes.
What is it the business owners don't know about the Chinese market and Chinese culture when you're trying to take product to China? Is there anything that you teach them?
Actually, it's quite difficult to teach them, and because if you have no experience at all, and by teaching you how to do the business in China, and then you cannot just rely on this kind of experience and do that business, and you have to have some real business, a real experience. Yeah, for example, the first client of me and my boss at that time, and his name is Bidrattan, and we discussed with the company. The name is Good Health Products.
Right.
25 years ago, it is the biggest and the best supplement brand. Supplement food brand in New Zealand, and they are looking for to go to China and to sell their products, and but they don't know how to do it and don't know who can rely on. So at the time, and Beat talked with the founder of the Good Health, and then we signed an agreement, and we will have them everything, and to have them to find the agents, to find the how to the marketing strategy, and how to raise the money if they are lacking of money, and do the marketing, and then we started. Yeah.
So you were able to help them raise capital actually in China. For the
raise capital, actually there is several different ways. For example, usually we say raise capitals is just some money invest into the company, and you give some shares to them. It is like what we understand about the raise capitals. But actually, after you raise the capitals, what you will do with the capital? You will spend it.
Yes.
Okay, right. And for example, for Good Health and for many other small New Zealand companies, in my experience, and they are lacking of the money to do the marketing in China. Actually. And the second is they are lacking of money to expand their productions. That's two. So they are just not need money. They need money to spend on the market and spend for their factories and to expand. If this is their purpose to raise money, actually they have different ways. For example, for Good Health and for some other smaller companies, what we do is to help them find cooperators in China. And this kind of cooperator can be agent, can be some other strategic selling channels, and some other partners, and they will not invest money into the company, but they can help to supply the money for the marketing, or even for buy the machines or buy the raw materials to expand the products. By doing this, it is a little complicated agreement, but it is good for the New Zealand companies because they don't need to sell their shares. They can control 100% by themselves, but at the same time, they get some support from fund support from China market, for example, from their agents. And the agents can look after the market. Agents can pay in advance to buy the products. And the agents can expand the market there. And in my experience, there is a company and who signed a co-branding agreement with some company there. So they set up a brand, Chinese brand. Translate it into Chinese and translate Chinese brand, and they co-hold this brand together, and they signed a 10 years agreement. And then the China partners and is willing to pay more money to build the brand, to do the marketing, because the brand belongs to both of them. It is another way to raise money. for the marketing actually.
Yeah, so it's like non-dilutionary capital raising and really like a joint venture approach.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. And I guess it's also makes sense because the Chinese partner as the creditor in that example can guarantee where the use of funds go.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Rather than having to make an investment in a New Zealand entity and then obviously trying to claw that, like to try and recoup that in the cases when it doesn't go right, would be more expensive than...
Yeah, it is one reason. Another reason is because government policies and regulations.
Yeah.
If you move money from fair investment to New Zealand and then move money from New Zealand back, it will a lot of barriers and a lot of documents you have to sign.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is a lot. The process is much longer. Yeah.
Ooh.
And some other way is because actually, and there are some different purpose of the owner or the agents, but by doing this, spend the money for a particular purpose, for example, marketing, and they both agreed on it, it will be much easier.
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting way of getting the resources. Ultimately, a lot of businesses are restrained with their resources.
Yes.
And, you have the traditional ways that we're very used to in New Zealand and in the West, which is through just debt, typically securitized by the founder or their property, or venture capital and equity investments. Those are the two. And then maybe some government support and tax breaks, but very, very small compared to the other two. So this is quite good. How quickly can these deals get done? That's, I guess, another one then is like, what's the deal? What's the kind of, deal time to close in these examples? Equity capital raises can be very drawn out. Sometimes they can take years, especially in hardware. So, the deal's able to be done faster because of this structure, or
faster? Usually months, about 3 to 6 months is enough. Usually, but actually that it depends on the trust we create between them, and because they don't know if they don't know each other, and they just talk with each other directly, it is a lot of misunderstanding and cultural difference and even cultural shocking. And so it's actually impossible to sign this kind of complicated agreement. But we may. And we know both ends, and we know what they are worried about and what they are concerned. So we can design a structure and design the terms and protect both of them. So make something what they want to happen.
That's cool. And when did you know, when did you realize you wanted to make this business and start growing this business? When did you decide to start, and what was the reason? It's
not just a reason to start. It is just a start. And it began is because actually my boss, Peter, and he held North Harbour Institute of Technology, and then he want to find more Chinese students. So I helped him. And then later, and when we talk about the good health products, and we become business partner, and we work together to help the good health to China. And then more and more companies, and find we can do this kind of successfully for other companies. So they come to us. So it's just a start.
That's right.
It's not because we want to do something, because there are some people who need our help. And then we just start.
So you kind of almost stumbled upon the idea or the opportunity because of good health.
Because not good health. Good health is the second one. It's not the first one. The first one is my boss, Peter.
Wanted the students.
The students actually. And then later we find there are many companies need clients and want to sell, need the agents or customers in China. They want to export their products. And in the past 25 years, and we find more and more New Zealand companies and realize that the China market is a huge and good market. And they want to do some search on it and do some visiting to know it and to find some people to help them to do it. And we are here and we have the records and we have the experience and we can help the other people. So they think, come to us and ask our help. It's easier. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. I mean,
it's very, very smooth. It's just not just we try to do something very big, very hard, and we work hard to do it. No, it's just very smooth, and we just start from the beginning, and more people come to us. Yeah, and it is the New Zealand side, and also. In some years, I lived in Shanghai, and to do it, I find there are some New Zealanders living in Shanghai also. And they also need to do more to research on other provinces. For example, maybe most